morning.
Good morning, everyone.
If you'd like to give a brief opening, you're welcome.
Sure. My name's AaronPeacock. As far as introductions, I want to include in this my thanks to you all for serving on this commission. I know you do this on your own time, and some people came from pretty far away, so I want to make sure that I thank you for doing this and give you the opportunity to speak to everybody. I am going to have to adjust my glasses. The glasses are new for reading, so I'll either not be able to read my notes or not be able to see. As you know, the application is pretty extensive, so I'm sure you know a lot about me already, and I'll just keep it to, I'm a county court judge here in Brevard County, currently assigned temporarily for over a year to the circuit court criminal bench, and I would rather save time for you all to ask me questions so I can answer any questions that you have, since the application was turned in, and you probably know everything from that. Thank you.
It was a great introduction.
Thank you.
And lending itself immediately to, I'm ready to take your questions. The problem with starting with me is I went through your application. I have no questions for you.
Thank you.
I'll pass it on.
Well, it's good seeing you again, Mr. Gray.
Nice seeing you.
I do. What happened to Michigan?
Well, that was sad. We all saw it coming. I think that, I wish it wasn't as bad as that, but, we have the Detroit sports, right? At least the Lions won.
That's right. Judge, you're a county judge, but I recently learned you've been doing circuit work for the last year.
In July of 23.
You're on the criminal division?
Yes.
Can you tell us how your experiences, how you like it?
I love it. That it's such a different dynamic, right? Like county court is great because I love county court because it's almost like a training ground. The newer attorneys, a little more relaxed. I tell you that I had to check my patience when I went to circuit court. I think I had pretty high expectations, and still do, of attorneys being prompt, being prepared. They should be more seasoned. So I check my patience quite a bit in circuit court, but the challenge of it is amazing. Just the issues you deal with, the motions are just a little bit more in depth, take a little more research, and so I love the challenge of it. The division has kind of molded together good too, so I appreciate that, and we're getting things done. And I set some goals when I took over in July, and we've met those goals. We're getting things moving. We've done approximately 15 or 16 jury trials in that year. So overall, I've been very pleased with going up to circuit court, and it's really the reason I put in for this position. There were 2 positions open for the circuit court when I was a county court judge that I did not put in for, but knowing how it is in circuit court and being able to preside over circuit court, I almost said practice, but I guess I'm more presiding in circuit court, is what led me to put in this time for the circuit court position.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Well, Jeff stole my question, so I have it. Good to see you again.
Good seeing you. Mr. Valentine, I expected a civil question from you, so I'll just get that out of the way. No, I have not tried a civil case. However, between Mr. Pickett's Andrew Pickett Law reels on Facebook and TikTok, I think I'm well prepared for at least personal injury. But no, I have taken steps the last couple conferences, and I did go to Judges College if you're switching positions to start learning some civil stuff, because even if this spot doesn't work out, I am going to go down to county court civil, so I will be having to do some civil work.
Well, that's good to hear.
And Mr. Downey, I did run into Mr. Hart the other day in Orlando, and he told me that, he said you were friends and told me to say hello. So I didn't want to forget that.
Thank you.
All right. So I want to give you an opportunity to respond to something that kind of surprised me during the vetting process. We heard from a number of people that at some points there may be an issue with your temperament on the bench. Is that something that you acknowledge and have worked on? Or do you agree with that or disagree with that? Or how would you respond to that?
I respond that I do have high expectations for people that appear in front of me. I do not try to be anybody's friend when I'm on the bench. I try to treat each side fairly. And yes, it's very frustrating when people are unprepared, which happens a lot, so I don't believe that it's something that I need to work on. I guess when you say temperament, patience is something I recognize from the very beginning in county court or circuit court that I think most judges have to work on. However, it's a lot of training in the new judges college about if you're getting to the point you need to step off the bench. I think, and I recognize then when that point, and it's going to happen, I think to all judges, the frustration of the system, the frustration of how things are going when you're responsible to move cases and work your docket correctly. So I guess to answer your question, yes, I recognize it in the sense of I think it's an issue that all judges face, and I think that's why they address it at the new judges college. But I don't believe that it has, I don't think it would reflect poorly if you saw the situation that whoever is saying that would if it was an experience that someone had, I think if you looked over it, I don't think it would reflect poorly because I recognize that we need to simmer the situation down. But yes, I think all judges need to work on that, and I recognize that patience is something that a judge has to have, and it's something that I think we probably all work on.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, Judge Peacock.
Good morning.
So I want to give you an opportunity as well to kind of respond to some things. So some people, I either have like glowing remarks. By the way, I appreciate how he moves cases. As somebody that's going to be in 8 courtrooms at one time, I appreciate that he's like, let's. But some of the comments that I had was, I mean, people either like they love you, that they're happy with the fact that you move cases. They're happy with you're nobody's friend. The opposite side of that spectrum is there's people who say that you are a prosecutor in a robe. And can you talk to us about that and maybe even assuage some of our concerns that maybe where this might come from or why they might be able to do that way or why it's not true?
Well, one, I think that if you're a prosecutor that gets put on the bench, people have those expectations, and they're going to say that no matter what happens. I think throughout my career on the bench that I have shown beyond a doubt that I treat both sides fairly. I allow for fair trials. I allow for motions. I have not been, to this point, knock on wood, on appeal, been overturned. I'm not saying that it's a significant factor, but I'm not saying that shows anything other than the things that have been appealed have not come back. And, it's almost kind of sad because as a prosecutor, that's in the back of your head, every decision you make is what someone's going to think about you, or, oh, if I rule against them, they're going to think that I'm a prosecutor. Listen, I'm a harsh sentencer. I understand that. But just because I'm sending someone to prison doesn't mean I'm doing it because I'm a prosecutor. When I took over this circuit bench, I believe that image was portrayed on me before I had even done anything. I think people thought, oh, he's just going to, especially with a law enforcement background. I mean, that's my background. It would be like a defense attorney getting to the bench and everybody's going to say, oh, they're going to be defense oriented. They're going to grant every motion. The only thing I can do is to keep on with what I think is right, treating people fairly, giving them the opportunity to litigate, and making sure that I follow the law, and I believe that I have done that. Any images that people have taken from that, I think would not be fair. I think that I've shown that I'm fair. I give people the opportunities in my rulings to follow the law. Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I appreciate that answer. My initial question was similar because I'd heard sort of similar things from both sides. Heck, even the side that said you're wonderful in every way. Felt that if anything, you erred on the side of making sure people didn't think that you were biased. And so, so thank you for addressing that thoroughly. So, a little twist on that. Could you explain to us, having made the transition from a career prosecutor to a judge in county court and overseeing circuit positions, the mindset change that you've had? How has your mindset changed in those two roles?
I was thinking about that because a couple of things about this prosecutor. Like you said, and I'm glad someone else said it, is you almost are, I believe that I'm almost harder on prosecutors because I know that they should be prepared, they should have their docket. I know what they should have done, and sometimes I don't see that. Today I was sitting on the bench during calendar call, and I was realizing that looking out instead of being there looking up at me, looking out, you truly get to see both sides. You get to hear both arguments. And you get to, when you hear both arguments, it's really not that tough to figure out who is giving you a law-based type argument and who is giving you an I would like you to rule in my favor type of argument. And so I was amazed by that because coming from a prosecutor and always just arguing one side, I thought it would be difficult, but it really isn't that difficult when you're up and you are actually acting as a neutral party, impartial, and when you hear the arguments, most decisions are pretty easy for me. So I will tell you the hardest part of this job for me, not the personal part like patience, I know I can work on patience, is the politics of being a judge. I didn't realize how much politics plays a role. And what you all are talking about is when you're making a decision and you're thinking, oh, if I rule this way, they may think I'm too much of a prosecutor, or if I rule this way, I wish that didn't exist. But you can't help it to go through your mind because it's your job. You want to keep your job, right? You don't want to be the person that draws opposition because someone thinks you're a prosecutor. And I think almost in every decision, at some point it goes through your mind what the consequences are to your, I don't want to say reputation, but what people are going to think about when you make a ruling. And you really have to work on pushing that out, following the law, and just being fair, and hopefully that's the image that people say, okay, I didn't win this one, but you followed the law, and they think it's fair. So
It's very candid.
thank you. Mm-hmm.
Hello, Judge Peacock. Pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to see you today. Thank you for your time. One question I want to ask you is, why do you want to be a circuit judge? In my career, a lot of times, my colleagues and I have joked that, not joked, but actually said that the county court judge is perhaps one of the best positions in all of government and one of the most desirable positions in all of government, period, flat out, to deal with young attorneys, to deal with interesting cases, not to have to deal with death penalty, not have to deal with family law cases. Why do you want to be a circuit judge? Why do you want to give up what I'll call it a sweet gig as a county court judge? Why do you want to be a circuit court judge?
Well, I really appreciate that question because if you were to talk to my wife and son, they would have told me not to do it. But my career has been in public service. Every step of my career is for the next challenge, right? And I believe as a public servant that you should go where your talents will be utilized the best. Now, like I said earlier, I didn't put in for the circuit court position until I actually went up and tried it because of that reason. County court is a great job. I love it. You can get in more into the aspect of teaching. You have the time to do some more teaching. However, being in circuit court for over this year is really taught me that it's a challenge to me. And I've always been up for the challenge, and I always think that you need to keep challenging yourself, because in this job, you need to be humble. That's one characteristic you need. People have put you in this position to do a good job, and you are, as a judge, you should be beyond gratified that someone has put you in a position to do this type of job. I think the circuit court is challenging. It's something that I have shown that I will spend the time. You know, it's longer hours than county court, but I'm willing to do that to make the system better. And I think that's what a life as a public servant is to always make the better for the citizens and to the public that you serve.
Thank you, sir.
I remember when you interviewed before, one of the questions that we asked you, because we had sent your name up a few times, at least twice before you. And the first time you did not get appointed, obviously, the second time you did. And I remember asking you, or somebody asked you, what you did to prepare between the two. And I remember your answer was that you had studied the judicial philosophy and kind of gotten more steeped into that.
Sure.
How, if at all, have you found the practical application of the judicial philosophy, and have you had opportunities to be considering the use of your articulated judicial philosophy in your rulings?
Sure. I just had a case actually with a pro se gentleman started telling me that he looked at the committee notes to something, and I let him know. I said, I'm not the right judge to argue committee notes, because that's part of a judicial philosophy, right? The text of the statute is what the legislature passed. So to go back, when I was first asked the question about judicial philosophy, the question was from Joe Jaco, and he said, what have you done since law school to develop your judicial philosophy? Well, I hadn't done anything. I didn't even really know what he meant. But I could answer the questions correctly because I could answer how I am as a person, which is law enforcement, prosecutor, follow the law, interpret the law, apply the law as you feel is fair and just, and that in of itself is a judicial philosophy. Now that I've looked into it, I can put words to that and what really the judicial philosophy is, right? I'm definitely more practicing judicial restraint compared to judicial activism, which means the statute is what it is, the words have meaning, and if they're unambiguous, they don't need any further interpretation. And then if they do need interpretation, then you get to go into that aspect. So opinions like Judge Sasso in the Amendment 3, Justice Sasso in the Amendment 3, putting it on the ballot, she wrote a dissent. And her whole dissent is about the word allowed, I believe. And she does a whole what the word allowed means, and finds that it shouldn't be on the ballot because of that. So I think since I've been a judge, I've been able to develop that judicial philosophy, and that's really one of the reasons why I attached one of the writing samples was from a civil infraction involving death, where the statute said what it said, and it had to do with something as simple as a license suspension. But I was actually able, even in county court, to go into that example and parse out what the statute meant and what it said. And that's why I included that, because that was one that I had written completely myself. So I think that I always practiced judicial philosophy, but it wasn't until I realized what judicial philosophy was from those interviews that I got to actually get into it, and and we don't practice too much Constitution interpretation, but as far as statute interpretation, I've been able to utilize that type of interpreting it for what it is, not making it what I want it to be.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the time you took to prepare your application and your service on the bench.
Thank you. I appreciate it.